Hi students, and welcome to today's live IELTS class. My name is Adrian and I'm streaming to you from beautiful Victoria here on the west coast of Canada. I hope everybody is having a good weekend, staying healthy, staying positive, and being productive. Welcome Andre. Welcome members. This is a members chat class. Everybody is welcome to watch. There's lots to learn, and we will have an all chat class coming up in 90 minutes where everybody can join the chat, and that will be speaking part 2. In this class, we have a question and answer session for our members discussing topics like what is a Band 9. So any questions related to IELTS, related to the English language, I am happy to help. Welcome Kyber. This lesson is presented to you by aehelp.com for academic IELTS success. Please visit us there. For the general IELTS, visit us at gieltshelp.com. That's generalieltshelp.com. On both of our websites, we have lots and lots of materials, HD videos, over 100 hours of video lessons, a fully interactive course, and original practice exams to help you improve and get those higher band scores. Welcome, Janil. Rashika, start thinking about your questions, members, while we wait for some of your peers and I introduce the class. This is what our academic IELTS website looks like here with the blue background. You can click this big red button to join the premium package. It's a one-time payment for lifetime access, so it's well worth the small investment to get those higher band scores. And we are an official British Council IELTS test registration center, as well as certified agents. And for the general IELTS, the green background with this big red button here, so click that to join our premium package. We have apps that connect to our website. So if you go to your app store, you can download Academic IELTS Help, link it to aehelp.com, or General IELTS Help and link it to gieltshelp.com. We have Instagram profiles, IELTS_AEHelp and GIELTS Help. And of course, if you have questions, and members, if you have some questions that for some chance I don't answer in this class, you can always send me an email as well to adrian@aehelp.com, and I will gladly respond to those in due time. Okay, everyone, so Saturday is the last day of the week for live classes. Then we have a short break until June 2nd, and then June 2nd I'm back with speaking part 1. So the new schedule is coming up for next week all the way to June 5th, and I will post this schedule on our YouTube community board, so you will be able to see it there. All right, members, so let's get into some questions. Now, the way this question session works, it's an open style question and answer session. And it first comes, first serve. So whoever kind of asks me the first question, I'll address that first. And then if some questions are related to other questions, I'll try to group them together, of course. Hi, Carolina. Welcome to our moderator as well. All right. So let's take some questions. Here we go. Kyber is asking, sir, when teachers are saying to practice a lot, what do they exactly mean by that? I mean, should we only take practice exams and apply strategies? Not necessarily, Kyber. When teachers are saying practice a lot, it means basically to use English every chance that you get. Okay, so it's actually a very good question, Kyber. It seems kind of like a very general question, but it's quite a good question. So Kyber is asking, what do teachers mean by practice a lot. All right. Well, the answer here is simply put. So it's a nice question, Kyber. Again, simply put, it means, for the sake of IELTS, this means use English every you get. Read, watch movies in English with or without subtitles. Speak to other people in English. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. So that seems like kind of a general answer back. So people are like, yeah, okay, I get it. So use English as much as possible. But it really does take effort. And let me give you an interesting example of this. So as many of you know, I was in Budapest a few months ago, and I have a small daughter. She's going to be 5 very soon. And now I've been back in Canada for the past few months, and I'm amazed at how she is already speaking English very fluently since we've been back. And any chance she gets to use English, she naturally uses English. So I noticed a really interesting fact, and if some of you have children and have moved to different countries, you'll notice this as well. Young children, let's say 2 to 10, but even after, will automatically switch language use and practice as needed. Okay, so it's actually kind of like programmed into us, but when we become adults, this becomes much more difficult. So we basically need to take the example of children, the way that they're able to switch and practice the language that they need. So that's what you need to do. Yes, Kyber, you should do practice exams, and yes, you should learn daily vocabulary. Yes, you should have a study plan. Yes, you should stick to it. But practice a lot just simply means to use it every chance that you get, to use English. Okay? And one common situation that I've come across in my years of teaching IELTS and English is when there are multiple family members who speak English. So let's say that your brother also speaks English, or in many situations, the parents speak English. So the husband, the wife, the boyfriend, the girlfriend speak English as well. If you have someone that you cohabit with, that you live together with, who also speaks English, I highly, highly, highly recommend to have what's called English hours in the week, okay? So this is a very important tip, and you reminded me of this, Kyber, with your question. So if you cohabit with another person who speaks English, like a husband, wife, roommate, okay, discuss having an English hour, or even more, I would say 90 minutes if you can, each day. For example, from 6 to 7:30 p.m. and make sure to stick to this agenda. Okay? Even when arguing or eating, etc. Okay? So, just out of curiosity, members, do any of you have people that you live with who speak English? So, Rajveer, is there somebody in your household that you can speak English to? Or Angelo, is there somebody in your house that you can speak English to? And if yes, do you speak English to them during the day? So do you have a time like between 6 and 8 p.m. or 9 and 10 p.m. where you basically said, okay, during this time, we switch to English. And you can set an alarm. That's another important thing. Okay, set an alarm on your phones that remind you of English hour. Okay. It is extremely useful for everyone in the family, especially if you have young kids and you want your children to learn English as well. Then definitely do that. So Carolina says no, unfortunately. Kyber says no. Angelo says me, yes. Okay. And Angelo, do you do that? So do you have an hour in the day or 2 hours in the day that you allocate to just English? Okay. All right, Janelle says no. Rajveer says, I use English with my peers during my working hours. That's great, Rajveer. Yeah, so of course, using it in your workplace is excellent as well. And I know, Carolina, that you have it at your workplace also, which is great. So having that at the workplace is fantastic. Okay, good, good. All right. Yeah, so that is really, really important. It's great. I'm glad to read that many of you have some chances to do that. Okay, good. That's what basically practice a lot means in the simplest sense. You just have to use English at the end of the day, right? Okay, let's look at some more questions here. Okay. All right, Janiel says, I'm confused with the past perfect tense. When I have a cue card that is in the past tense, where's the situation how I effectively and correctly use it? Okay. All right, so, okay, let's review it. So Janiel says, basically, Janiel, your question is, how do I use the past perfect tense effectively in my speaking? Okay. Good question. So let's say that you have a cue card where the topic is, so the cue card topic is, talk about a time you had to help a friend. Okay. Let's just hypothetically say that this is the question. Okay. Okay, so I helped my friend move to a new apartment. He had asked me the week before if I had some time to lend him a hand. Okay. All right. So let's take this example here, Janelle. Okay. So this would be a good example of how to use the past perfect effectively in your communication. Okay. And I'll explain it in a second, what the past perfect is exactly and why we use it. Okay. All right. So talk about a time you had to help a friend. Okay. Or let's make it simpler. That's not you had to help a friend, but let's just say, talk about a time you helped a friend. Okay. And then you start by, I helped my friend move to a new apartment in 2018. He had asked me the week before if I had some time to lend him a hand. Now, clearly, this is your past perfect sentence. He had asked me. Okay? So, when you're learning grammar, you probably know that we use the past perfect to indicate that an action happened before another action. Okay? So here, the past perfect had asked. Okay? So we have the auxiliary verb had. So it's have in the past tense. That's why it's not present perfect. So it's past perfect. We have the infinitive or the past participle verb asked. Okay? And then the rest of the sentence. So for the English listener, when you use the past perfect, it tells them that this action had happened before this action. So first, your friend asked to get some help from you. Okay, lend him a hand. Lend him a hand is an expression that means to get some help. And then you helped your friend move, okay? So in the timeline, this happened first, and this happened second, okay? Now, here's the question, members, that I'd like to ask you here, is what is the logic of the past perfect? Or put another way, why do you think past perfect exists in the English language? What's the utility? What is the purpose of past perfect grammar? Why does it exist in the English language? So what's the logic? Okay, and this is what I'm always teaching you when we discuss grammar lessons or grammar topics, is you always want to know why you use a certain type of grammar. So why do you use past perfect in the English language? Why does it exist in the language? Okay. All right, so why do you think? Carolina says, maybe to show responsibility. No, that's not the reason in this case. Kyber says to emphasize that another action happened. Janelle says, I think that it's better to understand the listener about the past event which I explained to him. Yes, Janelle, you're on the right track, absolutely. So it has something to do with time, okay? Kyber, you're on the right track as well with the emphasis. Carolina says to show the past of the past. Okay, the answer is to allow... Yeah, it's a very good question. I don't think we've ever talked about the past perfect in this sense. To allow non-linear or non-chronological movement in time, thereby emphasizing actions regardless of their position in time. Okay? Without being wordy. All right? So let me explain that a little bit clearer. So in this sentence here, okay, the question is, talk about a time you helped a friend. So I want to answer this question first. I want to emphasize the answer to this question first to my listener. Okay. And in this case, the answer is I helped my friend move to a new apartment. So that's the actual help that I gave. I want to emphasize that more because as we talked about, I believe, a long time ago discussing grammar, for humans, what we say first has the most emphasis. Okay? So what we hear first has the biggest impact. And then, of course, this is also important that he asked me if I had some time to lend him a hand, but it's not as important as this. Nevertheless, this happened before this happened. So I want to be able to say this quickly without necessarily having to always refer to the actual time. So without having to say when that happened, because it's not always necessary. So to the native ear, they will naturally put the actions in the correct order when they hear the past perfect. So the emphasis is here, and this is kind of like a bonus or an added action that allows further clarity and also allows the listener to identify the chronological order of events. Does that make sense? I know that's it can be a fairly confusing or complex kind of thought when you hear it like this, but does that make sense the way that I explained it? So past perfect allows you to emphasize certain actions regardless of their position in the timeline. Yeah, Kyber, it's extremely important to use the past perfect in the correct order. Okay, so I helped my friend move to a new apartment. He had asked me if I had some time to lend him a hand, and I had answered, yes, my weekend is free. I will gladly give you some assistance. Okay. All right. Past perfect definitely takes a lot of practice, students, to use it correctly, but your brain will catch on and then will become natural with it. Okay. All right. Also, an important tip is don't contract. Okay. So when you are using past and present perfect in your Ielts speaking, avoid contractions for the most part. Okay, so say he had asked me to lend him a hand instead of he'd asked me to lend him a hand. Okay, so really emphasize it. So if you're going to use the past perfect in your speaking, which is a great idea, make sure to emphasize the auxiliary verb had. Don't contract it to he'd. It's sometimes difficult to catch the contraction, and you want to really clearly show the examiner that you're using that past perfect in your speaking response. Okay, does that make sense? Janil, no other uses. That is the primary use. Okay, so the primary reason is to allow for the emphasis of certain actions regardless of their position in the chronological order. Okay, that's the primary use of past perfect. It's not quite the same as present perfect. So I can guess why you're asking, Janil, because of present perfect. Present perfect has all of these different applications like emphasizing change over time, experience, achievement over time, and so on, repetition over time. Past perfect is not quite the same. So I think a lot of students think, oh, past perfect, present perfect, they sound so similar. It has the same utility, but it's not. So the utility of present perfect and utility of past perfect, not quite the same. They're both connected to the timeline, okay? But present perfect does have all of this extra kind of application that past perfect doesn't really have. So good question, Jainiel. In this sense, the implication of past perfect and present perfect is not the same. Okay? All right, good question, Jainiel. Let's take another question. Kyber says, what is the difference between a thesis and a conclusion? Okay, Kyber, I'm going to verbally answer that. I want to give a chance for other students' questions as well. We've already had one from you. So the thesis, Kyber, is the last sentence of your introductory paragraph. It introduces the points that you will discuss in your essay. The conclusion emphasizes those points and your argument. Your thesis doesn't emphasize the same way that your conclusion does. The conclusion emphasizes those points because you already made your argument. So in the conclusion, you're directly or indirectly telling your reader that, hey, these were my points, and now you should agree with me because I have given you a valid rational argument. Okay, so the conclusion is an entire paragraph, Kyber. The thesis is usually just one or two sentences, and the conclusion is much more of an opinion. It's stronger. Okay, it's more opinionated because you've already explained and validated your thesis. Does that make sense? Yeah? So you have to choose your words accordingly. Okay. All right. Rahul Kamadia, good to see you, is asking, how to tackle the cue card if we do not have any idea about it? Like suppose if we have been asked about a mountain trip and we have never taken a mountain trip, then how to answer such a question? Okay, so okay, sure, Rahul, good question. So how do I talk about a cue card that I do not have experience about? For example, a mountain trip. Okay. Simple answer here, Rahul, is you have to reflect on indirect experiences that you might have from your past, such as reading a book or watching a movie on the subject, like a mountain climbing expedition to the summit of Mount Everest. Okay. And you have to use your imagination. Okay. So climb with friends, difficult, hike, trees, animals, food, camping. Okay. So basically, Rahul, you have to do the best with what you have. Okay. With the cue card, even if we don't have a direct experience, like we've never actually hiked up a mountain, most people would have some indirect experiences. So they have learned about it, they have heard stories about it, watched a movie about it, and then you have to use that and put it all together. Imagine that you are walking through a park that's not a mountain, and then imagine that that park is not flat, but it's steep, and all of the added challenges of that, and all of the added benefits, having a better view, seeing the valley, seeing the villages below, being above the clouds, having less oxygen. Okay, so we can imagine that. I think a good example, because some of us have been up on a mountain, some of us haven't, but for example, like deep sea diving, okay? Practice such topics at home before your exam. For example, going on a diving expedition. Okay, so many people, I'm sure, have not been deep sea diving. Okay, I know I haven't. I've done some shallow water diving, but I've never done deep sea diving, and I'm sure many people have never actually tried diving with a scuba tank. But most of us have seen some nature documentaries of people diving in the ocean. So we can still imagine if we're doing that and we're deep sea diving, and all of the adventure and the challenges and dangers and the excitement that we can have for that. Okay, so be creative. Okay. Definitely, I think another tip I can give you here, and this will also improve your English, is practice write short stories. A very common exercise in English middle schools and high schools is short story writing. So if you actually Google how to write short stories in English, there are very technical steps to short story writing. I'm not going to get into that, but if you go online and you Google short story writing, you will get some really interesting articles and some really kind of fun exercises. Okay, depending on your browser settings. So Google how to write short stories, and that will also help to develop your creative thinking and your ability to kind of tell stories. Okay, so do storytelling. All right. Okay. Angelo is saying, how many vocabulary words should we learn to get a profound Band 9 score? Angelo, the answer, okay. How many extra words should I learn for a Band 9? Answer, as many as possible. Ideally, 500 new words leading up to the exam, 5 words per day for 100 days. Okay, that's the quick response, Angelo, to your question. There is no perfect number. You should know at least several thousand words in English, and you should be able to use them effectively, not just understand them, but use them in your speaking and your writing effectively and fluently. I would say knowing at least 5,000 words in English is a good kind of benchmark for what's needed for a Band 9, okay? You can get Band 9 with less, with 3,000 words, let's say, but importantly, try to learn 5 new words a day for 90 to 100 days before your exam, and that will really improve your chances. Okay? And Andre, I see your other question about my personal Instagram. I don't have a personal Instagram yet. I'm not sure if I will. The reason for that is it's time. I don't know if I'll have time to maintain a personal Instagram profile. Okay? All right. Der Pistars, good to see you in the class. So Dur is asking, is it acceptable to speak slightly more than 2 minutes while speaking part 2 of the Ielts? Yeah, but it's likely that they're going to stop you. So Dur's question is, can I go over the 2-minute mark in speaking part 2? The answer is yes. However, in most cases, like 99% of the time, the examiner will stop you at 2 minutes because they are looking at a stopwatch. Okay? So yes, you can. However, what's really, really important, Dur, is that you answer all of the questions on the cue card within that 2 minutes. It is very important that you answer all of the questions on the cue card in the first 90 seconds. Okay, because sometimes examiners will not actually allow you to speak for the full 2 minutes. So in the instructions, it says that you will have 1 to 2 minutes to speak on the topic. So if they feel like you've answered all the questions in the first minute, or if they feel that you're just repeating the same idea over and over again, they might stop you at 90 seconds. Okay, sometimes even sooner. So you want to make sure that you check the cue card, look at the cue card, and make sure that you answer all of the questions on the cue card in the first 90 seconds, and then you can expand if you have to. Okay? All right. Good question. Buckrod is asking, is there any solution to deal with heading in reading for rephrasing it and get it done in the given period of time? But mostly it took me more than 20 minutes. Buckrod, you just have to practice it. If you're paraphrasing the statements in the list of headings in the reading, that's, I think, what you're asking me. Don't overthink it. So do your best, but don't spend like 20 seconds on one heading trying to paraphrase it. Okay? So just do your best. If you can only paraphrase one word or no words, just go to the next one. Okay? So don't force the paraphrasing during the reading section. Okay? That's definitely an important tip. It's a good question, Buckrod. So you do not have enough time in the reading section to ponder on detailed and accurate paraphrasing for questions. Just do your best and move on. Spend only a few or a couple of seconds on each question or statement. Okay? So, yeah, definitely don't focus on one statement and be like, okay, I got to paraphrase this. What's another? No, just do your best and move on, okay? All right. Okay. Rajveer is asking, when should I use present perfect continuous tense versus the present perfect passive. I find it a bit confusing as it's not mandatory to state the time reference in present perfect continuous every time. Okay, Rajveer. So here, I think, Rajveer, the important difference is to understand the purpose of the passive versus the continuous, which is quite different, okay? So it's a pretty big question, Rajveer, so I don't have enough time to really go deeply into this, but I think I can give you an acceptable answer. So passive tense is used in the English language, whether it's for the present perfect or whether it's for the simple tense, or you're using the future participle will, doesn't matter. The important idea about passive tense is that passive tense is used in the sentence when the agent of the action is either unknown or is unimportant. The speaker does not want to emphasize it. Okay, let me give you an example. Okay, so the project has been completed before the given deadline. Okay, so here we want to emphasize the idea that the project is finished, and we don't know maybe who completed the project, or we don't think that it's important to mention who completed the project. What's more important for us to emphasize in this case is that the project has been completed before the given deadline. Okay. Now, the continuous or progressive, just to be confusing, right? Give it two names. So continuous, progressive, same idea. So continuous progressive grammar form is used when the speaker, the writer, wants to emphasize the continuous, like a video showing visually to the listener, the audience. Okay, so all right, so our team has been working on this project tirelessly for the past 6 months. Okay. So when we use the continuous form of the verb, then our goal is to have the listener or the audience feel the continuousness of the action. So like a video, like a movie where there's day in and day out. So here with this sentence, I can see many people going into the office or going out into the field, and day in, day out, they're building, they're planning, they're designing, they're moving, they're assessing the project, and they're just working on it, giving 110% for the past half year, for the past 6 months. So here I'm emphasizing that action of this project, okay? So the team has been working. So this sentence for the listener, okay, emphasizes the continuity the effort and the achievement of this team working over the past half a year. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. So that's the primary difference between using the passive form of a grammar and using the continuous form of grammar, is what you're really emphasizing for the listener, okay, in the background or your audience. That's what you have to keep in mind, all right? So, and of course, again, you can combine emphasis. So human communication, as I'm sure many of you have realized that have been with me over the months studying English, is that human communication is highly dependent on the emphasis. So what we want to really kind of push for our audience, what we want our audience to perceive as being important, okay? And that's interesting because we don't often do this in an explicit way, but we do it in an implicit way. So it means that we don't usually tell a person like, hey, my friend, look at how important it is that these people are working every day nonstop from 8 a.m. till midnight on this project. So we often don't explicitly emphasize importance, but we kind of hide it, if you will, or we implicitly emphasize importance, like, oh, the team has been working on this project tirelessly for 6 months. It's like, oh, wow, so you just told me that they're like every day, go, 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 doing the work. So it's implicit in the communication, okay? It's implicit to the communication, all right? Okay, and I'm going to stop on that note. I can see that there's a few more questions, and I know there's lots of great questions all the time in these Q&A classes. If I haven't answered your question, I see one from Rashika and Ois and Bakrat. Just send me an email, and I'll definitely get back to you with some answers, or one of my colleagues will get back to you with an answer. We're a team of highly trained professionals, so you're in good hands with us. And of course, you can learn a lot about these kinds of strategies and ideas on our websites at aehelp.com for academic IELTS and gieltshelp.com for general IELTS. So check us out there. Thank you, students, for your great questions today. I really, really appreciate it. Hopefully you've gained some further insights into IELTS and the English language. I will be back in about 30 minutes with a new cue card question for part 2. Everybody will be able to join in on that chat, and we will work through strategy and developing a good answer. You're very, very welcome, members. Always happy to help you develop in these classes. Hang around, come back in half an hour, maybe just take a short break, do some stretches, grab a glass of water, and then we'll get back to work. I'm Adrian. I'm signing out from Victoria momentarily. See you soon. Bye.